The Moscow-Helsinki Group, also known as the Moscow-Helsinki Watch Group, Russian, Moskovskaya Helsinkskaya Gruppa, is today one of Russia's leading human rights organizations. It was originally set up in 1976 to monitor Soviet compliance with the Helsinki Accords and to report to the West on Soviet human rights abuses. 414 It was forced out of existence in the early 1980s, but revived in 1989 and continues to operate in Russia as of 2021. In the 1970s, Moscow-Helsinki Group inspired the formation of similar groups in other Warsaw Pact countries and support groups in the West within the Soviet Union. Helsinki Watch Groups were founded in Ukraine, Lithuania, Georgia and Armenia, as well as in the United States. Helsinki Watch, later Human Rights Watch. Similar initiatives sprung up in countries such as Czechoslovakia with Charter 77. Eventually, the Helsinki monitoring groups inspired by the Moscow-Helsinki Group formed the International Helsinki Federation. Founding and goals. On 1 August 1975, the Soviet Union became one of the 35 nations to sign the Helsinki Accords during the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe in Helsinki, Finland. Although the Soviet Union had signed the accords primarily due to foreign policy considerations, it ultimately accepted a text containing unprecedented human rights provisions. The so-called third basket of the accords obliged the signatories to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms, including freedom of thought, conscience, religion or belief. The signatories also confirmed the right of the individual to know and act upon his rights and duties in this field. 99 to 100 The public group to promote fulfillment of the Helsinki Accords in the USSR was the idea of physicist Yuri Fyodorovich Orlov, based on previous 1.5-decade-old experience of dissent. Taking advantage of international publicity of the Helsinki Accords and contacts to Western journalists. On 12 May 1976, Orlov announced the formation of the Moscow-Helsinki Group at a press conference held at the apartment of Andrei Sakharov. The newly inaugurated Moscow-Helsinki Group was to monitor Soviet compliance with the human rights provisions of the Helsinki Final Act. In its founding statement, the group announced its goal to inform the heads of the signatory states as well as the world public about cases of direct violations of the Helsinki Accords. It announced that it would accept information on violations of these articles from citizens and compile documents on them. 338 Apart from Yuri Orlov, the group's founding members were Anatoly Sharansky, Lyudmila Alexieva, Alexander Korchik, Malva Landa, Vitaly Rubin, Yelena Bonner, Alexander Ginsburg, Anatoly Marchenko, Petro Grigorenko, and Mikhail Bernstam. 10 other people, including Sofia Kalistratova, Naum Maiman, Yuri Nyuk, Viktor Nekopolov, Tatiana Osipova, Felix Serebrov, Vladimir Slepak, Leonid Ternovsky, and Yuri Yurimagev joined the group later. The composition of the Moscow-Helsinki Group was a deliberate attempt to bring together a diverse set of leading dissidents, and worked as a bridge between human rights activists, those focused on the rights of refuseniks and national minorities or on religious and economic issues, as well as between workers and intellectuals. 58 to 59. Activities. Western radio stations such Voice of America and Radio Liberty helped disseminate news about the creation of the Moscow-Helsinki Group. leading to relatively broad awareness throughout the Soviet Union. Soviet citizens who learned about the existence of the group passed on written complaints to members, or in many cases found a group member in person to report a first-hand case of abuse when in Moscow. The members of the Helsinki group also traveled throughout the Soviet Union to conduct research on compliance with the Helsinki Final Act. After verifying the complaint, when possible, the group would issue reports on the violations they observed. The reports typically included a survey of a specific case, followed by a discussion of the human rights violations relevant to the Helsinki and other international accords as well as the Soviet constitution and law. The documents closed with a call for action by the signatory states. 150 The Helsinki Group would then campaign internationally by passing on the reports on their violations for publication abroad, calling for intervention by the other signatory states. The group's strategy was to make 35 copies of each document and send them by registered mail to the 34 Moscow embassies affiliated with the CSCEE and directly to Leonid Brezhnev. Moscow-Helsinki group members also met with foreign correspondents to reach audiences beyond the Soviet Union. Western journalists, in particular those posted to Moscow bureaus or working for the Voice of America or Radio Liberty, also disseminated the information and were essential to the development of a broader Helsinki network. 63 The CSCE translated all documents it received and forwarded them to other CSCE states and interested groups. 65 The group's complaints would also be forwarded for review at the international follow-up meetings to Helsinki, including the 1977 Belgrade meeting and the 1980 meeting in Madrid. 149. In addition, the documents and appeals were circulated via samizdat. Many documents that reached the West were republished in periodicals such as the Kahirs do Samizdat and the Samizdat Bulletin. Over time, the group's documents focused on a wide range of issues, including national self-determination, the right to choose one's residence, emigration and the right of return, freedom of belief, the right to monitor human rights, the right to a fair trial, the rights of political prisoners, and the abuse of psychiatry. 63 In the 6 years of its existence in the Soviet Union, the Moscow-Helsinki group compiled a total of 195 such reports. Between 12 May 1976 and 6 September 1982, when the last 3 members who were not imprisoned announced the group would discontinue its work, the group also compiled numerous appeals to the signatory states, trade unions in the United States, Canada, Europe, and the world public. 150. Working Commission on Psychiatry for Political Purposes. In January 1977, Alexander Podrabinek along with a 47-year-old self-educated worker Felix Serebrov, a 30-year-old computer programmer Vyacheslav Bachman and Irina Kuplin established the Working Commission to investigate the use of psychiatry for political purposes. 148 The commission was formally linked to 148 and constituted as an offshoot of the Moscow-Helsinki group. It was composed of 5 open members and several anonymous ones, including a few psychiatrists who, at great danger to themselves, conducted their own independent examinations of cases of alleged psychiatric abuse. The members of the Working Commission were subjected to various terms and types of punishments. 45 Alexander Podrabinek was sentenced to 5 years internal exile. Irina Grivnina to 5 years internal exile. Vyacheslav Bachman to 3 years in a labor camp. Dr. Leonid Ternovsky to 3 years labor camp. Dr. Anatoly Koryagan to 8 years imprisonment and labor camp and 4 years internal exile. Dr. Alexander Voloshanovich was sent to voluntary exile. 153. Persecution. Members of the Moscow-Helsinki group were threatened by the KGB. Imprisoned, exiled or forced to emigrate. 7,858 by 1977. KGB head Yuri Andropov had determined. The need has thus emerged to terminate the actions of all of fellow Helsinki monitor Ginsburg and others once and for all. On the basis of existing law. 73 The first arrests of members of the Moscow-Helsinki group were carried out by Soviet authorities. In early 1977. They followed an explosion in the Moscow metro on 8 January. After the Soviet press linked dissidents to the attack. Following the attack, Andrei Sakharov accused the KGB of a deliberate attempt to discredit dissidents in order to facilitate their persecution. The Moscow and Ukrainian Helsinki groups and the Russian section of Amnesty International issued a joint statement denying any participation in the attack and emphasized their adherence to the principle of nonviolent protest. 151 During the following year, a number of members were sentenced to prison camps, incarcerated in psychiatric institutions, and sent into internal exile within the USSR. Yuri Orlov, sentenced on 18 May 1978 to 7 years in strict regime camps followed by 5 years of internal exile for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. Article 70. RSFSR Criminal Code. Vladimir Slepak, sentenced on 21 June 1978 to 5 years internal exile for malicious hooliganism. Article 206. Anatoly Sharansky, sentenced on 14 July 1978 to 3 years in prison and 10 years in strict regime camps for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. Article 70. And treason. Article 64A. In October 1981 he was sentenced to return to prison for a further 3 years. Malva Landa, sentenced on 26 March 1980 to 5 years internal exile for anti-Soviet fabrications. Article 190-1. Viktor Nekopolov, sentenced on 13 June 1980 to 7 years in labor camps and 5 years internal exile for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. Article 70. Leonid Ternovsky, also a member of the Psychiatric Working Group, sentenced on 30 December 1980 to 3 years in ordinary regime camps for anti-Soviet fabrications. Article 190-1. Felix Serebrov, also a member of the Psychiatric Working Group, sentenced on 21 July 1981 to 4 years in strict regime camps plus 5 years exile for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. Article 70. Earlier sentenced in 1977 to 1 year in the camps. Tatiana Osipova, sentenced on 2 April 1981 to 5 years in ordinary regime camps and 5 years internal exile for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. Article 70. Anatoly Marchenko, sentenced on 4 September 1981 to 10 years in special regime camps plus 5 years internal exile for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. Article 70. Ivan Kovalev was sentenced on 2 April 1982 to 5 years of strict regime camps plus 5 years internal exile for anti-Soviet agitation and Propaganda. Article 70. The Soviet authorities encouraged other activists to emigrate. Lyudmila Alexeyeva left the Soviet Union in February 1977. Founding members of the Moscow-Helsinki group emigrated: Mikhail Bernstam, Alexander Korchak and Vitaly Rubin. Pyotr Grigorenko was stripped of his Soviet citizenship in November 1977 while seeking medical treatment abroad. 75 By the early 1980s, the members of the Moscow-Helsinki group were scattered between prisons, camps and exile in the USSR, while others lived abroad. At the end of 1981, only Elena Bonner, Sofia Kalistratova and Naum Maiman remained free. The dissolution of the Moscow-Helsinki group was officially announced by Elena Bonner on 8 September 1982. 35 According to Sergei Grigorians, Elena Bonner announced the dissolution of the Helsinki group not only because of the direct threat of an arrest to the 75-year-old Sofia Kalistratova, against whom legal action had already been taken, but also because the Helsinki group became a channel for the emigration of those who wished to go abroad and, in some cases, apparently, for the penetration abroad of KGB agents adopting the image of dissidents. Helsinki Network. The Moscow-Helsinki group became the center of the new network of humanitarian protest in the USSR. Following the formation of the Moscow-Helsinki group, Helsinki watch groups were formed in Lithuania. November 1976. Ukraine. November 1976. Georgia. January 1977. And Armenia. April 1977. Other protest groups announced their formation at press conferences held by the Moscow-Helsinki group, such as the Working Commission to investigate the use of psychiatry for political purposes, the Christian Committee for the Defense of the Rights of Religious Believers, and other associations. In June 1976, the group's appeal to U.S. Congresswoman Millicent Fenwick persuaded her to lead the creation of the U.S. Helsinki Commission. See the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe, which included senators, Congress members, and representatives from the state, defense, and commerce departments. In 1978, Helsinki Watch was founded in the U.S. The private NGO became the most influential Western NGO devoted to Helsinki monitoring. 115 Its mandate was to produce reports on human rights abuses in the Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, and the United States. First of all for the next meeting of the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe, CSCE, which was due to open in Madrid in 1980. 116 In 1988, Helsinki Watch evolved into Human Rights Watch. In 1982, the Helsinki monitoring groups of Austria, Belgium, Canada, France, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden and the United States formed the International Helsinki Federation. Rebirth of the group. In July 1989, the Moscow-Helsinki group was re-established by human rights activists Vyacheslav Bachman, Larissa Bogoraz, Sergei Kovalev, Alexei Smirnov, Lev Timofeyev, and Boris Zolochkin. Other prominent members are Yuri Orlov, Lyudmila Alexeyeva, Henry Resnick, Lev Ponomarev, and Alexei Semenov. The chair of the re-established Moscow-Helsinki group was Larissa Bogoraz. Followed in 1994 by Kronid Lubarsky. In May 1996, Lyudmila Alexeyeva, who returned from emigration in 1993, became its head, leading it until her death in 2018. In November 1998, She was also elected president of the International Helsinki Federation for Human Rights. Criticism. Opinions differed as to the effectiveness and impact of the revived Moscow-Helsinki group. In the late 1980s and early 1990s it was no longer alone, but one among a variety of new organizations. Memorial for Human Rights, the Glasnost Defense Foundation, that were engaged in defending human rights and freedom of expression, and carrying out missions to hot spots in different parts of the USSR and later in Russia. Above all, Chechnya. Human rights activist Sergei Grigorians, founder of the Glasnost periodical, was particularly scathing. Instead of the heroic and sacrificial traditions of the original Helsinki groups, the re-established body was an intelligentsia-oriented elite club, forgotten by all. In 2001 he described it as the most servile and pro-government, among NGOs then existing in Russia. 2010s. 2020s. In 2012, the Moscow-Helsinki group renounced foreign funding and connections in order avoid being labeled as a foreign agent in compliance with the Russian foreign agent law. In 2015, the Moscow-Helsinki group continued fighting against being labeled as a foreign agent as of 2021. MHG is co-chaired by two participants of the Soviet-era dissident movement, Vyacheslav Bachman, political prisoner in 1980–84, and Valery Borshchev, formerly Duma deputy from the opposition Yabloko party. Two of its main projects include annual reports on the human rights situation in Russia, monitoring police activities, and educational programs. In September 2021, MHG issued a statement denouncing the non-transparency of electronic voting used in the preceding elections to the Duma and urging Russia's Board of Elections to cancel electronic voting results. References. Publications. A thematic survey of the documents of the Moscow-Helsinki Group, based on materials by Lyudmila Alexieva, Moscow-Helsinki Group representative, translated and edited by the staff of the CSCE Commission. Washington, D.C. Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe. Congress of the United States. 1981. Documents of the Helsinki Watch Group in the USSR. No. 1–8. New York. 1977–1984. Dokumenty Moskovskoj Helsinkskoj Grupy 1976–1982. Documents of the Moscow-Helsinki Group 1976–1982. PDF. In Russian. Moscow. Moscow-Helsinki Group. 2006. Archived from the original. PDF. On 6 August 2006. Retrieved 1 February 2007. Publicly available unabridged Russian text. Further reading. The Soviet Union. Information booklet on the Moscow Group to establish trust between the USSR and the USA and its affiliates. Helsinki Watch. 1984. Alexeyeva, Lyudmila. 1987. Soviet Descent. Contemporary Movements for National, Religious, and Human Rights. Wesleyan University Press. ISBN 978-0-8195-6176-3. Alexieva, Lyudmila. 1992. Istoria Inakomizlia v SSSR. Novy period. History of Dissent in the USSR. Contemporary period. In Russian. Vilnius, Moscow. Vest. ISBN 9785984484268. Publicly available unabridged Russian text. Byelinsky, Yaroslav. Panning. Tonu. March 1981. Helsinki Watch Committees in the Soviet Republics. Implications for Soviet Nationality Policy. Nationalities Papers. The Journal of Nationalism and Ethnicity. 9. 1. 1–25. DOI 10.1080 009059981084078999. Elliott, Ian. 1989. The Helsinki Process and Human Rights in the Soviet Union. In Hill. Dillis. ed. Human Rights and Foreign Policy. Principles and Practice. Macmillan. pp. 91–114. DOI 10. 17978 1 349 09334 2_6. ISBN 978-0333436547. Fitzpatrick, Catherine. 1986. The Moscow-Helsinki Monitors. Their Vision. Their Achievement. The Price They Paid. May 12. 1976 May 12. 1986. Helsinki Watch Committee. Gerstenmaier. Cornelia. 1977. Dokumente der Moskauer Helsinki Gruppe. Text der Forderungsgruppe zur Erfüllung der Beschluss von Helsinki in der UdSSR. Documents of the Moscow-Helsinki Group. Texts of Promoting Group to Fulfill the Helsinki Accords in the USSR. In German. Frankfurt am Main. Gesellschaft für Menschenrechte. In Verbindung mit dem Interkonfessionellen Institut Glaube in R2. Welt. OCLC 64318172. Goldberg, Paul. 1988. The Final Act. The Dramatic, Revealing Story of the Moscow-Helsinki Watch Group. William Morrow and Company. ISBN 978-0688068592. Rayome, Charles. Autumn 2008. Human Beings Over Systems. The Queue from Helsinki. International Journal. 63. 4. 979–989. JSTOR 40204432. Sharansky. Anatoly. Bonner. Yelena. Alexeyeva. Ludmila. The 26th of June 1986. The 10th Year of the Watch. The New York Review of Books. Snyder. Sarah. 2011. Even in a Yakutian Village. Helsinki Monitoring in Moscow and Beyond. Human Rights Activism and the End of the Cold War. A Transnational History of the Helsinki Network. Human Rights in History. New York. Cambridge University Press. pp. 53–80. ISBN 978-1107645103. Thomas. Daniel. 2001. The Helsinki Effect. International Norms. Human Rights. And the Demise of Communism. Princeton. N. J. Princeton University Press. ISBN 978-0691048598. Vlast I Dissidenti. Is Dokumentov KGB I Seek KPSS. Authority and Dissidents. From documents by the KGB and the Central Committee of the CPSU. PDF. In Russian. Moscow. Moscow-Helsinki Group. 2006. ISBN 978-5-98440-034-3. Archived from the original. PDF. On 6 March 2013. Retrieved 27 August 2015. Publicly available unabridged Russian text. Video. Natella Boltianskaya. 16 March 2016. Episode 8. Moscow-Helsinki Group. Parallels. Events. People. Voice of America. Retrieved 24 May 2016. The History of the MHG and Human Rights Movement. In Russian. 53 minutes on YouTube. Lyudmila Alexeyeva from the Russian Civil Rights Group. 9:16 on YouTube.